Hey! Well, it is Saturday, November 2nd, and I am at my house in Muskoka. I have got everything out to begin the creation of my new hot tent. I'm super excited. I have two hot tents, yes. The first one is basically only able to be used for car camping because it's really heavy. It's got 9 steel poles. That was the first one that I made, and I love it still. The second one I made 2 years ago is a backcountry hot tent. It's mostly for me, solo. It's about 8.5 by 8.5. It's very tiny inside. My friend Sue has gone camping with me in it before, but it's really, really, really tight. So I've been thinking for like over a year now that I wanted to make another tent, make something just a bit bigger so that I can go backcountry camping with a friend or two, and this is going to be that tent. The dimensions are going to be approximately 10 by 13 with a 7.5-foot peak, and the structure is made with aluminum poles that I got from JT's Fabric. I have a list of all the supplies that I have, but I'll do a little video here of everything that I have out. I've got everything out in my living room. I've like moved all my furniture over so I can work in here and use the floor space because it's going to be big and hard to work with unless I have some room. So I'm going to get started. Alright, so basically laid out here in my living room dining room, is everything that I'm going to be using to make this hot tent. Not including my jacket, obviously. I have a few personal things still in the room. I tried to clear it out as best as I could. So below you'll see the poles. They are aluminum poles. They're 6-foot aluminum poles, and there's actually a 3/4 inch and a 7/8 inch. The 3/4 inch is nesting inside the 7/8 inch, and there's a telescopic connector on each of these. So basically I can just turn this little handle and pull this pole out, and it'll extend actually almost to 12 feet. But I don't want it to be 12 feet, I want it to be 10 feet. And some of the pole will be left inside the other pole to give it lots of support and stability so that it doesn't, bend or break or whatever under the weight. I have a gigantic ruler here that my boss lent me, and a square one over there for the 90-degree angle, because I'm terrible at cutting and drawing straight lines. Underneath that is a 30-gauge plastic. This is going to be a big thing that I'm doing. I'm super excited about this. I've always wanted to have a tent with a window in it. This 30-gauge plastic is rated for up to -30. If it gets colder than that, hopefully it doesn't crack. I will be making like a little covering to go over the windows, but hopefully I'll be able to use that. I'm going to put one on each side. I just got one piece. It's a meter long, and it's good for 2 windows, so I'm going to put one on each side. I'm super excited about that. Over here is the stove jack that I have left over from my last tent. It is from a blanket, I guess, that I got. It's called it's from Princess Auto. It's a welding blanket, and you can get them for about $25. Sometimes they go on sale for $20. Basically, I had one. I cut it into 6 squares, I believe. I sold and gave away a couple of them, and I kept one for myself in case I ever made another tent. And ta-da! Here I am. Inside of that is just the high temp gasket maker. That's what you have to put around the circle when you cut it. Actually, you put it on first and then you cut it. That's my recommendation. 4 packages of Painter's Draw Cloth Canvas from Home Depot on sale for $44. I got 4 packages. I probably could have done some fancy cutting, sewing, stitching together and used 3 packages, but I want it to look nice. I don't want seams all over the place, and I wanted it easy, so I just got the 4. On top of there you will see my nice 6-foot long canvas zipper that is made for boat canvases, I believe. And something new that I'm doing this time, I have the water sealer from JT's Fabric also. I was told by a friend who used this that it is amazing. It's actually $145 a jug, but I needed it. So it's for waterproofing the tent, and then after I apply that, I will be fireproofing it. I do not have the fireproofing spray yet, but I will pick that up. I have time. Here I have 6 meters of the green plastic coated canvas, which will be going around the bottoms to keep the snow from sticking and to add a little flare. I also have enough to do the roof peak, maybe about 1.5 feet down on either side. I thought that would give it a little extra protection in the vulnerable area in case it rains. So that'll be probably put on last. Got a couple sketches here, the patterns and sizing and things that I'm going to need. A whole bunch of fabric and Velcro and thread and all that stuff, needles, pins, and my sewing machine. So it looks like I'm ready to start. So I am going to get started, and I'm super excited to see how this turns out. The one thing that I do have missing is the 3 connectors that are going on the tubes. One will be at either end of the ridge pole, and then one will be in the middle to support the other 2 legs that will go up from the center. So they are being made for me, and I do not have them yet, which is why I can't test out the frame, but that doesn't mean that I can't start cutting and sewing and getting everything else ready. So we're off to the races. I hope this thing turns out the way I want it to. I guess I won't know until I start. Okay, I've got my plastic coated canvas out, the green. This is going on the bottom of all the panels that goes around the bottom edge of the tent, and that's to keep the ice and the snow from sticking and melting and getting stuck in there and stuff like that. It actually works really well. It also adds a little flair, and you know, it's the same color as my logo, so just so happens. Anyway, so what I've done here is I have a 6 meter piece of plastic coated canvas, and it's 60 inches high. So what I've done is I've separated this section into 15-inch pieces. So there'll be 4 strips, 15 inches high, going all the way across. I've already measured them by 15 inches, and then I just have to cut them down. I'll have 2 pieces that will be 10 feet and 2 pieces that will be 13 feet. Now when I say these measurements, 10 feet, 13 feet, I'm not talking exactly. Obviously it's going to be 10 feet and like 2 inches or so, 13 feet and 2 inches, because I have to cut a little bit extra for the seam allowances. But just, you know, for chatting's sake, I'm not going to be like every time I say a measurement, 10 feet, 2 inches, 10 feet, 1 inch, whatever. So 2 strips, 10 feet, 2 strips, 13 feet. That'll cover the triangle ends. And then the rest of the material that goes off where the 10 feet stops, that will be used for the piece that's going on top of the ridge. But I'm going to do that later because I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. I want to see how it looks and stuff like that. So it's going to be something that would be sewn on afterwards and not like right into the tent as I'm making it. But these pieces will be added on to each panel pretty much close in the beginning. So that's why I would just want to have them cut up and measured, and that way they're ready to go when I need them. Alright, and that's up to 8 feet, so because I don't have that much space to work with, what I'll need to do is cut all of the strips to 8 feet, and then roll all the strips up, and then open up the rest of the material to finish off the 2 feet on the bottom strips, and then the 13-ish feet on the top strips. And this should be pretty much the story of my day today. Cutting, and more cutting. Hopefully I'll get to do some sewing too. Okay, so I have just finished cutting the strips for the bottom of each side. There's 2 10-footers and 2 13-footers. They are actually 11 feet and 14 because I realized that to attach them at the bottom, if I'm going to attach them at the bottom corners, they have to have an angle going down to touch each other. So I gave it over a feet for each one, and that should be plenty. And then I have enough for one 10-foot piece. My measurement was actually wrong. I got 6 meters, and 6 meters is just over 19 feet. Alright, the first package of canvas has been opened. If you're curious what a 12 by 15 foot piece of canvas looks like, this is it. It's large, very, very large. I need to cut the first two I'm going to do is the 10 by 10 panels, which is the easiest, obviously. I cannot make it 10 feet this way as my space here is only about 8.5 feet. So what I'm going to do is cut it 10 this way and then turn the material and then cut it to 10 that way, so I can lay it all out nice and smooth. I have checked the entire piece of canvas for flaws. That is something you absolutely have to do before you do anything. I learned that from making my tent last time. I ended up with a piece that was supposed to be the front of the tent with a huge flaw in it, and I had already sewn it all together. I didn't inspect it properly before I started, and I ended up having to take all the stitches out and flip the front and the back because obviously you don't want a big flaw on the front of your tent. So I'm going to measure this out to 10 feet. I have checked it out. It looks very nice. It does have a big seam down the middle, but they sew them very, very well. And I think it's awesome. It's really nice looking, actually. I remember the first packages of canvas I bought for the very first tent I made, the teepee hot tent, and there were a lot of flaws in it. This canvas is the same one that I used last time, and I find the Everbuilt one is really, really a good quality, and there's usually not any flaws in it, but that's not guaranteed, and it is a drop cloth, so you have to just check to make sure. Alright, well, I got this gigantic 12 foot by 15 foot piece of canvas stretched out in my living room. I've moved a whole bunch of furniture so that like I can lay it out. I obviously can't still lay out the whole piece, but I can do the 10 feet this way. This is actually 10 feet from way over there where my couch is. I've measured it 10 feet and 2 inches. So I have an inch on either side for the seam. I'm going to be doing French seams, so I don't need a lot of extra, and it's going to get folded under. Otherwise I have to trim it, so I don't even want to, I just want to totally skip that phase. So I'm cutting it up to here. This actually only goes to about 8 feet, and then I have to cut it and then scooch it all down, lay it all out flat again, and then cut the remaining couple of feet. Then I'll turn the canvas a quarter turn and then cut that side. Now the other length doesn't have to be 10 feet because the plastic coated canvas is going on the bottom of it. So this is actually 15 inches. Now I don't actually want to take off a whole foot because this should be laying in the ground under the snow a little bit. It shouldn't like be up here, and if it's, you know, part of the 10 feet, then it would do that. If it's like, you know, maybe if I do 9.5 feet and then add it, it's kind of more like this, and that's how I want it. I want it to actually sit on the ground and be able to pile some snow on top of it. So I think I'll probably do 9.5 feet and then add this, and this should make it the extra. You probably can't see it, but I did measure and I put the chalk lines on it. And it's actually perfect. You can just see it enough to cut and to know what you're doing, but it's pretty incognito. And I mean, again, it's just chalk, so I mean, if you wipe it a little bit with some water, or, you know, even just kind of tap it a little bit and rub it, it comes right out. So super easy, a lot better than the Sharpie and the pen that I used on the very first tent that I made, which had markings and still does all inside the tent that you can see. So learned my lesson with that one. I measured this in 4 different sections. The way the canvas gets folded, there's like actually lines in it going this way. So I just took the measuring tape and put it along, you know, every other line fold mark, and made sure that it was, you know, the same, because if that end is crooked, you know, and I cut this to 10 feet, let's say in 2 spots, it might kind of not balance out, especially because I'm only doing 2 extra inches, which is like, that's crazy for me. Usually I'm like, you know, 10 and a half I would do, and then, you know, and then everything gets wonky, right, because you have to take it in. I just want to sew everything once, put it on the frame, and have it fit. So, and the good thing about the frame is it's all telescopic poles. So if it's 10 feet, less than 10 feet, if it, you know, ends up being 9 feet and 11 inches, I can just adjust the poles to fit the actual tent now. So it is a little bit better and easier that way. I've come to the end of the chalk line, so now I'll have to move all the canvas down and then remeasure those pieces at the top. And basically today is all about measuring and cutting. I might get to do some pinning. I can probably sew together the 2 10-foot pieces at the ridge line, and not sure how much else I'll get done. Alright, so I've just laid out the measuring tape, and I'm measuring it at 10 feet, and then at 10 feet 2 inches and 10 feet 3 inches, and just to kind of give it that little buffer in between the 1 and the 2 inches in case there's some kind of weird, like, I don't know, this seam over here on the end, like right on the corner, it kind of goes in a little bit at the corner, so just to give it that little extra inch allowance, just to make sure it fits. So I've got that marked there, and this is the piece that I've already cut to here. I think I'll measure one more just to be safe and make sure it's bang on. Okay, there's a lot of being on the knees on this project. I don't like that. Okay, here's 10 feet. Hang on, there's a bump in the material. Oh, I just made another one. Oh, geez. It's definitely going to not be perfect. This is part of why I don't make tents for other people. They're never going to be exactly accurate or, you know, perfect. And I don't think I would ever feel comfortable selling something to someone that wasn't just perfect. But this is not a precision project. Like, you know, I try to get it as close as I can, but I'm not a seamstress, I'm not a professional. I just want to make a tent that I can have my friends hang out in with me in the winter. So, it's a little bit off, it's a little bit off. Nobody's going to be measuring it, it's not going in a contest or anything, and I just don't care, right? Like, no one will notice. Like I said, the other one was off measured a lot because I had a problem with the flaw in the tent. And it still stands up and it keeps me warm, and that's the most important thing. As long as you can set it up and you can use it and it keeps you warm and dry in the winter, then I've done my job right. Okay, so now this is cut to 10 feet. I can turn it and cut it on the other side because I couldn't fit it. So I still won't be able to fit the whole thing, but I can just do what I just did. Cut it twice. Alright, so here is that same piece of canvas, and it's cut 10 feet this way, and now I'm going to cut it 9.5 feet this way, actually be 9 feet 8 inches this way, so that I can add the plastic coated canvas to the bottom, and it still touches the ground, but only a bit. Woohoo! It's 3:15 and I have one panel cut. Oh wow. I don't know what's taking so long. It's just the measure, spreading it all out, spreading it out some more, measuring again, cutting. So I have one of 4 panels done. Because I had it already laid out on the ground so nicely, I thought I might as well add the plastic coated canvas to the bottom. This is actually the outside of the tent that you're looking at on either the right or left side, one of the 10 by 10 walls. And this has been pinned. I'll pull it out so you can actually see, but it's not gonna look. There's some big gaps in between the pins because I forgot to buy some. I don't have a ton of them. I just have like a perfect amount. So there, kind of give you an idea. So with the inch on each side, the plastic coated canvas should begin around 9.5 feet. So it'll give like 6 inches on the tent and then 6 inches. Well, it's actually 15 inches, so it'll give 9 inches that will be able to sit on the ground still, if it all works out, you know. Okay, so on to the next one. Basically, I'm gonna do another exact duplicate of this for the other side, and then I will do the triangles if it's not midnight by then. Have you ever folded a really big tarp by yourself? You have to walk from side to side to side to side to side to side. That's kind of like what it is like to work with a 12 by 15 piece of canvas, especially in a living room. I'm only on the second one, and it's like 4:30. It's just moving the material, going over to the one side, pulling it tight, going back to the other side, pulling it tight, sliding it over, sliding it down, pulling it tight, measuring it, moving it up, pulling it tight, measuring it. It's a lot of work. Okay, I had to do a quick run to the hardware store to get my my light fixed. I don't have a lot of light in my living room. I just have this little ceiling fan, and it doesn't give out a lot of light. So I had to go get that so I could keep working because it's really dark and dreary out, and it's gonna get dark in a couple hours. So here is the second panel. Took me a little less time than the first one. I still have to, you know, spread out the material and slide it up and slide it down and measure it 500 times. But I've got the bottom panel on there, and what I'm going to do now, because I have it laying out already, I'm going to take the other one out and lay it on top and pin the ridge line together. So that's going to be the very top of the tent, the 10-foot pole that goes along there. This will get draped over it. So I'm going to put those together and pin them, and then I will continue with the cutting. The triangles are next, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do them in here. I need more room, and I don't have it, so I'll have to figure something out. Alright, well, it's getting dark outside. Got my light on, which is great. I'm sitting here thinking, and trying to figure out how to cut this material. I just talked to my friend Chris, who's made a tent similar to this one. His tent is really nice. If you get a chance to check it out, he's usually at New Year's and Family Day. Anyways, so we went back and forth with a bunch of different ways to do it, and used some paper and stuff and folded it, and I think this is the best way to do it. He thinks this is the best way to do it, and it actually works with my living room, so that's good. So basically what I did was I measured the canvas this way, 14 feet and 3 inches, just to give it a little allowance for the seams. And then what I did was I folded them in each corner, folded up the top corner down and this top corner down, and now I have my triangle. Now this technically is supposed to be 7.5 feet, according to my model, and the paper math and all the math says that it should be 7.5 feet, but it's only 7 feet. However, the bottom of this is getting the plastic coated canvas, so it's not really a big deal, but I'm going to wait to actually sew it on the other panels and this panel until the whole tent is sewed together, because I want to make sure that they all line up with each other. So here there's a seam down the middle, like these are 2 pieces folded in. So basically I can cut here, and I will have the 2 triangles for the front because the zipper's got to go down the middle anyways. And then I have the 1 full panel for the back, which will be there. So that means that the extra package of canvas that I got can go back to the store and I get $44 back, which is awesome because, you know, I spent a lot of money getting all the stuff for this. So it'll be great to get $50 back. So I'm going to get my iron and I'm just going to press these seams just to make them nice and crisp and then open them up, and that will let me know where to cut. And then I'm going to cut that and I will have the 2 triangles for the front and the panel for the back underneath. And that is an exact 90-degree angle. I checked it with the drywall square. So I'm good to go. So I'm going to do that, and I might call it a day for now and then start the sewing tomorrow. All right, so as you can see, I've opened up the canvas and lifted off the triangles, and you can see a very nice definite line made by the iron. That was a tip recommended by Chris. I've also done this type of a thing in the past when making stuff, and it does take a couple extra minutes, but it is really, really helpful. Good morning, it is Sunday and I am on day 2 of my hot tent build. I spent the entire day yesterday cutting out the 4 panels. I know that sounds crazy, but literally I started at 9 in the morning, worked till 6 at night, and I just stopped for a few minutes to eat lunch and dinner in between. It's very difficult, even if I had a bigger space to work in, because I'm by myself. Each piece of canvas, each package of canvas is 12 feet by 15 feet. So just walking around that piece over and over and over again and bending down and moving the piece so that it lies flat, and then measuring that one section and then moving it all again and measuring that section and moving it all again and measuring and then moving it all again to cut it, and then turning it and then doing the other side and doing that 4 times. For 4 panels, I mean, like, you're doing it more than 4 times, but it's just a very, very, very time consuming. So if you have someone to help you, that is a great thing to do, because it takes a lot of time when you're doing it by yourself. Even if I had a bigger space, I would still be having to walk around and pull out the material and stretch it. I just wouldn't have to do it as many times because I wouldn't have to move it down and open it again. Yeah, so today I'm going to start to actually do some sewing. I'm going to sit down first and come up with a plan. I think the first thing I'm going to do is the windows, and put those in each side panel before I even put them together, because once they get sewn together and then the triangles get sewn in, then you're dealing with trying to push this massive piece of material through the sewing machine. Now I am doing French seams for the seams, which means basically you sew the wrong sides together, very, very close to the edge, and then you open it up, press it, and then flip it over and sew the right sides together, and that makes a really nice seam where there's no strings hanging and no fraying occurring and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get going and see what we get into today. So because I don't have the connectors, I haven't been able to set up the frame, and I'm like a really visual person. I kind of need to see what I'm working with before I do something. So I just set the poles, 2 of them, to 10 feet. I put one up here against the wall, approximately 7 feet high. It'll be a little bit taller than that, but not much. And it's almost at the proper angle. And then down here on the floor, I just put a 10-foot pole across just to see, just to get an idea of the actual size of the tent. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty good size. That way I can kind of helps me to figure out where to put things and stuff like that. Alright, so I'm just sitting here trying to kind of draw out what I want to put in each panel and where, etc. Basically, I think what I'm going to go with is putting a bigger window. I haven't like quite a bit of the clear material, so I can probably do a few things. So right at the front on the left side of the tent, I'm going to put a window there. This will be, the front area is actually where the stove is going to be on this side, behind this door. So I also would like to put a little triangle window in the front door so I can see who's outside. You know, if it's being used for car camping, that would be cool. And then over on the other side of the tent, on the right side panel is going to go the stove jack, and then a vent above it, and then a window in the back end. These windows will be about 3 feet down from the ridge so that if you're standing up in the tent, you can see out of them. And also the back one here will be good for, you know, if you're lying down, you can actually look up and see the sky and the stars and stuff like that. That was a good point that my friend Sue just made. And then on the back triangle, this is actually where I was going to put the vent originally, but a nice little triangle window at the back would be nice as well. So I'm going to lay out the 30 gauge clear plastic and see how much I have, if I can actually do all this. And then I'm going to get to making them and putting them in. Okay, so in order to make the hole for the stove jack, which I have already done, I just need to do the hole for it. I just need to know the size of the pipe where it exits the tent, and this is the pipe that actually does that. So I just went and grabbed it from the stove and outlined a circle of it on the paper here, and then I will cut that out and then transfer it to the stove jack so that I have the correct size hole. In addition to doing the windows, the stove jack will have to eventually get put in. Now I most likely will not do this until I have the frame put together, which means I need to wait for the connectors and then actually put the tent up and measure the height from the ground. It's just too tricky to do now guessing because the pipe has to line up pretty good with the stove. So I can do part of the stove jack now, which I'm going to get it all ready at least. And basically I had this stove jack from my last project. What I did was I cut out, I traced actually the stovepipe size where it's going to be most likely exiting the tent. It only varies by like millimeters depending on that. So I traced it, and I'm going to trace it onto the stove jack. Some of these angles, I tell ya. It's tough to film. Okay, basically I'll just get the center of the square easily. I mean, this is, nothing has to be perfect on this, right? And let's say about there. And that should do. Just got the piece of plastic to go underneath for the when I put the sealant on it so it doesn't leak through my floor. Okay, so it's about the middle. Just eyeball it. You can measure it. I mean, this is not perfectly square because it's really, really hard to sew and cut the welding blanket. It frays like crazy. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'm good with that. I'm gonna mark the little circle here and just trace it on. Even just writing on it with the pencil is like all the little threads are bunching up and acting out. Okay, this should be good. So there it is. If you can see that, it's very shimmery. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to zigzag. Basically what I'm going to do is zigzag stitch this 3 times around, and then I'm going to apply the high heat gasket sealant before I cut it out. That way the material won't fray. Alright, as I said, this material is very funny. It likes to shape shift almost. So what I did was I sewed with the zigzag stitch actually I went 4 times around the circle with the sewing machine, and that will help to keep it from fraying when I cut it. Now I have my high temperature gasket maker here. And basically this is good for up to 600 degrees. This will keep it from melting and from catching on fire, so very important. Alright, so I cut it, and it's a very pretty color. It doesn't go with it, that's for sure. So basically I'm just going to make a circle, and I'm going to put it on really thick. You can do a couple of layers. I like to do that so that it dries better. Just put it all the way around. Now you do want to be in a well-ventilated area when you do this, because it is very, very smelly. I have one of my windows open here, but I will not be in this room once this is done. I'm going to be heading back into the other room. So I would say to make it about 1 centimeter wide all the way around. It's never bad to have too much. Okay, that's good for now.